Hey everyone. So, it's been a little while. Me and Mishka have been on a little break, but you can see she's very motivated today. And I figured we'd talk a little bit about Vienna, because I sometimes get questions over whether I can give some tips on what to do if you come on a vacation to Vienna, how to best get around, etc. And I figured I'd put that in a video to maybe help you if you're planning a little trip to this beautiful city. Obviously, there are a couple of topics I've already talked about, like coffee houses or museums. So I'll just link the playlist and you can look at whatever interests you the most. I got a couple of information brochures from the tourist info, but I figured we'd start with the most important part, and that's how to actually get to Vienna. If you arrive at the airport, you will find some big signs telling you to take the cat. And unfortunately, that's not an advert for Mishka here. It's an advert for a train, well, like a city shuttle that takes you to the city center. However, the cat is pretty handy because it's fast, but it's also pretty expensive, all things considered. I think currently it costs about 18 euros. And I just want to show you a cheaper way to do that. You can also get a ticket for one of the ÖBB trains, that's the Austrian Railways. And you can take the, I think it's a rail jet, so a normal train that would continue to, for example, Salzburg. Or you can take an S-Bahn, which is like the city railway system. And this ticket here that I got is from the border of the city to the airport. And I paid 190, but I have a Vorteilskarte from the railways, so I paid half price. Normally this would be 380. Plus you need a ticket for in Vienna from the Wiener Linien. A single ticket would be 240. So together you would pay about 6 euros, and that's a third of the price for the cat. So I would very much recommend that. And you don't have to pay these separately. I just bought them like this because it's easier to show you what I mean, and I can still use these two tickets. You can get these tickets just at a ticket machine right at the airport, and I think it's easiest to get one ticket right to wherever you want to go in Vienna, so you don't have to worry about the border of the city. The railjet will take you to the main train station, and the S7 takes you to, for example, Wien Mitte, just like the cat. It just takes about, I guess, 10 minutes longer. But I don't think that's an issue when you're on vacation. And I'll just show you where that is. So you can see here, the airport is in Schwechat. And right here you have the logo of the cat train. And you can see here in bright green, without a stop, all the way to Landstraße Wien Mitte, the city air terminal. And if you take, for example, the S7, the blue line, it stops a couple times in Mansfeld, Schwechat, Kaiser Ebersdorf, Zentralfriedhof, a couple times up here, but then you can also get off at Landstrasse. So you really aren't losing a lot of time. And the main train station's right here. And you can also get on a train that takes you to the airport or back into the city. So that's pretty useful. And I think a good tip to know, because most tourist info sites I looked at will tell you to get the cat, but you don't have to. Then the second thing I would recommend is to go to the tourist info, which is near Karlsplatz and sort of behind the opera, near Albertina. Maybe we can have a look at the larger map for that. There we go. So here you have the opera. This would be the Hofburg, there's the Albertina, and then right at the corner there's the tourist info. And you can pick up a free map like this one, which is pretty useful. You can pick up a program of what's on at the moment. You can get some information on ticket prices for museums, concerts, etc. So I think that is a good first stop. And they also have combi tickets like these here, the Vienna City Pass or the City Card. I'll be honest, I would really look at your options before you get these. Obviously, they're pretty comfortable, especially the Vienna Pass. So you get them for either 1 day, 2, 3, or 6 days. And then these are some of the sites that you can visit. You don't have to queue, you don't have to get an extra ticket, you can just walk in, somebody will scan it for you, and you can have a look around. But as you can see, especially the 1 day pass is a little pricey. So I would really think about whether that fits with your style of visiting a city. If you take it for more days, then I think it's a bit easier to see enough places to make it worth it. Another option would be the Flexi Pass. So you decide how many places you want to visit, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and it's a lower price. The 2 visits here, for example, would mean you have entrance to 2 different museums or other attractions, and it also includes the hop-on, hop-off bus. This one's pretty expensive, so if you want to do that, if you think that's fun, then that might be a good option for you. But if you prefer to see just, I don't know, 2 or 3 sites and you're not sure what you want to see yet, maybe check if they have some kind of combi ticket. Like, say, if you want to go to the Art History Museum and maybe one other museum, but you're open to whatever options you have, they might be able to tell you whether there's a combination ticket with, I think they have one with the Leopold Museum, for example. Or if you want to see the Imperial Apartments right here in Hofburg, you can get a combination ticket with Schönbrunn, as far as I know. So I would ask about that here or directly at the museums. And a little additional tip for young people and students, there are sometimes special offers. So you can get a cheaper ticket. They might not always be marketed towards tourists, so don't be afraid to ask. You might get a really good deal. And you can see a lot of the options that you have in the city. One thing that's obviously also important is the question of how to get around. The inner city is relatively small, so you can just walk. It's definitely organized in a way that invites you to walk. If you do take public transport, then you need a ticket, like this one here. But as you can see, 240 is pretty expensive for a single ticket. I saw today that if you buy your ticket at a machine at an underground station, they also offer tickets specifically for visitors to the city. So you can get one for 24 hours, 48 or 72 hours, or even for a whole week. And they would be €8, 14 or 17 euros respectively. And if you keep in mind, the cat train would be about 18 euros, so that's the same price as a public transport ticket for 3 days in Vienna. It's not really worth it. Let's just put this aside for a minute. When you do get a ticket, you need to validate it. So you have a validator like this when you go to the underground. You put your ticket in and it stamps it. So very old school in Vienna. There are no cards to tap anything electronically. You just stamp it. And you notice here that this is not a closed barrier when you walk into the underground station. So it's not like in London, for example, where you have to tap your ticket before the barrier opens. You can just walk in, and you'll see a lot of people doing exactly that. That's because most people in Vienna have an annual ticket for public transport, so they'll just walk through. You might still run into a ticket check though, so definitely keep this with you. Someone might ask you on a train or a tram to show your ticket, or when you exit a station there might be a group of Wiener Linien personnel asking you to show your ticket. It happens sporadically, so you might spend a week here and never run into anyone asking for your ticket. But especially, for example, at the start of the semester, it tends to happen quite often. And well, personally, I'm not someone to run the risk. You can, of course, also get it just on your phone and show it on your screen. Just keep in mind, if you buy it at the machine, you can also give it to someone else If you buy it on your phone, it's only valid for you. So there's a little difference there. And there's another little tip that I want to share with you when it comes to public transport. You can take the train to another city for a day trip. For example, to Graz in the south, or you're taking the Westbahn to Linz or Salzburg. The rail line is called Westbahn, and there's a private rail company that has adopted the name and is also called Westbahn because it runs only on their line. They started from Vienna to Salzburg and have now expanded into Tirol to Kufstein, Wörgl and Innsbruck. And you can see here they have a fixed schedule. This is the train from Wien Westbahnhof, so not the main train station, but the western one, to Linz, Salzburg, and then you have two different ones, one to Innsbruck and one to Munich in Germany. Most of them run every day, either every half hour or like here every hour, so they skip one train. Alright, a little visitor is back. And you can see that the trains start quite early in the morning, but the last one back isn't too late. So here, 8 o'clock and then 8:30. But it's perfect for a trip to Salzburg. You can see here it's only 2.5 hours. So that's perfectly doable. And of course Linz is even closer, just over an hour. And I know Linz has a reputation of being more of an industrial city, but the city center is actually really nice. And the thing about the Westbahn is that it's a lot cheaper than if you take the Austrian railways, the ÖBB. If you're really well organized, you might get your ticket well in advance, and maybe you can even catch one of these West Superpreise. So for example, Vienna to Salzburg would be 14 euros, which is a really good deal. However, you have to check really quite early. They sell out fast, and I often have the feeling that I only find the ones for the trains really early in the morning, so they're not available for all connections. But it's either way, it's definitely worth checking in advance for ticket prices. If you live in Vienna for a bit longer, maybe for an exchange semester, it might also be worth getting this Vorteilskarte. Right, it says here, ÖBB Vorteilskarte. You can maybe see it here, she's holding it. And that's the one I mentioned earlier that I have. Oh, sorry, wrong ticket. This one, where you get 50% off your ÖBB tickets. It's only 66 euros if you buy it online, so that's well worth it if you want to explore a little bit of the country while you're here. And they also give you a little discount if you buy a standard ticket for the Westbahn. Just keep in mind, the Westbahn tickets are only valid on these trains, and the ÖBB tickets only with the ÖBB. So make sure you get on the correct train. But they usually remind you before the train departs, so you can quickly check. Alright, and maybe you're wondering why I've put some cash here today as decoration. The thing is, especially if you're outside of Vienna, you might run into places where they don't accept cards. Most places do, but it's always possible to find one where they only take cash. The opposite, where they only take card, is really rare. But if you're unsure, best just ask before ordering anything. These days they usually put a little sign somewhere if they don't take cards. You don't necessarily have to get out euros, but it might help. Austria is pretty conservative in that regard. But what I like about the euro coins, in case you don't know that, every country has a different pattern on the back. So this is for the 10 cents. And this is an Austrian one with the Stephansdom, the cathedral. The €1 coin has Mozart on the back, but unfortunately I don't have one right now. I only have a German one. So no Mozart. I also sometimes get asked about restaurants that I can recommend, but I feel like that really depends on what your preferences are. Generally though, keep in mind wherever you go to have a meal, you would usually tip something like 10-15% at the end. If you don't tip, it will come across as a bit rude. Or maybe they just peg you as foreigners who didn't know. But if you tip, they'll be quite happy. Most places in the city I think are quite nice. I don't generally go out to eat in the first district, but I'll show you afterwards some other places that you can go to. One thing that's really, really nice in summer is going to a Heuriger or Buschenschank. And I have a picture here of what they might look like. You can see the vineyards here in the back. There's a nice church. Beautiful old buildings. This is a book from the mid-90s, so the cars look a bit older too. But you know, other than that, they're newer cars now. But generally this area doesn't look all that different now. This is in the Wiener Berge, the Viennese mountains, which are here on the western side of the city. And that's where you will find most of the Buschenschanken and Heuriger and Heurigen. Like here in Nussdorf, this is Neustift am Walde. Grinzing is quite well known. But you also have some on the other side of the Danube, in Strebersdorf, Stammersdorf and Jedlersdorf. And also here in the 23rd district in Mauer. This is another one of these guides I picked up at the tourist info. And it says there are 50 different Heurigen and Buschenschanken. So you have plenty of options. And just for information, the difference is a Heuriger is a restaurant, and at a Buschenschank you only get cold plates and no hot meals. You can see here they tell you when they are open. The Heurige are open almost all year round. Buschenschanken usually open in summer and autumn. They tell you where it is, how to get there by public transport, and any features like vegan options or children's playgrounds. You can definitely get there by public transport, you just have to count a little more time. Generally here in Vienna I count half an hour wherever I go. Of course sometimes you get a bit faster, sometimes it takes a bit longer. To get City Heurigen I usually have to count a bit more time because you're going further out. But that is something I would definitely recommend in summer, and you'll have a beautiful view across the city. You can see it here, just in the background. But the parts that you're probably the most interested in will be here in the center. There are plenty of nice coffee houses. There are also plenty of bakeries if you're looking for a snack. And if you want to go and eat somewhere that is not too expensive and where you don't find mostly tourists, I'm not saying that's the case everywhere in the first district, but that's sometimes my impression. You could, for example, go to the museums quarter and then out in this direction. So for example here at Spittelberg, you have plenty of options and it's a really nice area. I think whether or not the surroundings are nice really adds to your enjoyment of the food too. So I've had some good meals here. You can of course also go to the Naschmarkt. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the market itself, but alongside the market you also have a lot of little restaurants. And I really like the atmosphere there. It's quite busy but also really cozy, and again plenty of options. You can also come here in this area around Schleifmühlgasse. That's the Freihausviertel, where you have some very nice restaurants. Or you could come up here towards Karmeliterplatz in the second district. So you cross the Donaukanal and come in this direction. And there's also a really nice market with a lot of food options. Or one of my favorite places is here, Servitenviertel. This is Servitenplatz with a church that makes the whole thing look like an old town square before it became part of Vienna. And you have plenty of options here as well. Generally, Austrian cuisine uses a lot of meat, but you do have vegetarian options in pretty much all restaurants. The only thing I would recommend, if you see that a traditional restaurant offers baked cheese, baked mushrooms, and maybe a vegetarian schnitzel I would maybe look for another place. Especially the baked cheese is a lot. In a worst case scenario, though, you can always go for some of the sweet dishes like Kaiserschmarrn or Marillenknödel. They're usually quite good. And you might remember this book from a video I did back at the start of this channel. There are plenty of traditional Austrian recipes that include, for example, lentils or dumplings, and they are really nice. And a lot of restaurants feature them again. Just briefly wanted to show you, this would be a Marillenknödel. You can also find them with other fillings like nougat or strawberries, or of course there are also plenty of savory options, but the Marillenknödel is a classic. So if you want to go for Apfelstrudel or Marillenknödel, you can also try this one. And one of my favorites, especially in winter at the Christmas markets, is Käsespätzle, which is really cheesy with onions. Love it, especially in the winter. It's just perfect. And you can usually get them at all of the Christmas markets. And then that's one of my last tips. So of course, if you're coming in winter, Christmas markets are a great place to visit. I don't really have a favorite. I think they're all really nice. And if you visit in summer, you can also check out the Rathausplatz. There's a film festival with plenty of food stalls. I think right now there might be an Easter market. I'm not 100% sure. And in winter you can go ice skating here through the park. And then throughout the year there are just different little festivals are worth checking out. There definitely is an Easter market here at the Freiung, which is a really nice square. And of course you can always check out Prater, or when it gets really hot in summer, maybe go to Gänsehäufel or one of the restaurants. I think there's one maybe here, I'm not completely sure. That's right along the water, and you have quite a nice view, especially when the sun goes down. If you do visit Vienna in summer, keep in mind that it does get really quite hot, and we don't have ACs in all places. So, yeah, a little warning. Alright. So I hope that was helpful. If you want to know anything specifically, just write a comment, or you can always send me a message. I do love hearing from you. So for today, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Good night.